Before moving on in our Google Workspace DNS configuration, we need to understand what an SPF record is. Nowadays, email security is very important. There are a lot of email-based attacks, most of them founding on spoofing. Due to this, it's very important to automatically verify email authenticity to avoid any further damage due to spoofed or illegitimate email messages. In this framework, SPF helps us reaching this goal. SPF, that stands for Sender Policy Framework, is an authentication method designed to detect and prevent email spoofing. Its primary goal is to help the receiving mail server verify that an incoming mail message from a specific domain is legitimate. How does this system work? The sender's domain publishes SPF records in its DNS domain name system. Please remind that only one SPF record per domain is allowed. To be more precise, the SPF record itself has been deprecated, so now in most of the DNS systems we use a TXT record that works as SPF. This record contains a list of authorized mail servers for that specific domain. Please remind that the maximum number of entries for an SPF record is 10. Which are the main components of an SPF records? The first one is the version of SPF being used. So, for example, if an SPF or TXT record starts with v equals SPF1, means that the TXT record works as SPF records and is using version 1 of the sender policy framework. The include parameter specifies a list of authorized mail server. And finally, all denotes the policy for the rest of the servers. Let's make an example. We find that TXT records like the one in the slide means that the only server allowed to send email on behalf of domain, whatever it is, most probably example.com, is _SPF. A authorized the specify a record for that domain to be an authorized sender for that specific domain. For example, if you have a website that sends alerts or newsletters or something, this is a good option. MX parameter authorized the domain's mail server to send emails on behalf of that specific domain. Finally, include, that can be followed by IP addresses or domain names, includes SPF records of other domains. The final part of an SPF records could be composed differently. For example, if an SPF records ends with ~all, this indicates a soft fail, meaning that if a server is not in the list in the SPF records, should be treated with caution, so this will only increase the spam score for that specific email, but it will not necessarily force that specific email to be in the spam folder. -all indicates an hard fail, meaning that if the sending server is not authorized, the email address should be necessarily treated as suspicious. What are the best practices for managing SPF records? First of all, regularly update SPF records to include all authorized email servers. Second of all, avoid using -all, the hard fail option, if not all email want to know more about the SPF. You can check the Wikipedia page on n.wikipedia.org/wiki/sender_policy_framework. One of the most famous tools to check SPF records is the free one used by MX Toolbox that is available at mxtoolbox.com/spf.aspx. You can also check SPF records using the Windows command line tool nslookup. If you want to know more about this Windows included command, you can check learn.microsoft.com at the relevant documentation page. SPF record at our domain provider. In this example, we will add the basic Google SPF record, intending that no other SMTP server will be used in our domain to send legitimate email. The basic SPF record can be found at this Google Workspace support page. Before adding this record, please note that from this page you can click on the breadcrumb here on Help Prevent Spoofing, Phishing and Spam and see a lot of useful additional information about SPF, DKIM and DMARC records. Okay, now let's configure the record. First of all, let's copy the content of the basic SPF record. Let's move to our DNS panel. Let's add a record, and the record will be txt type. Let's paste the content for the SPF record, and let's copy and paste our main domain, that in our case is trainingxyz.it. Let's apply the change, and after a few minutes, the SPF record will be configured. Just a quick note, as you can see, in the list of our DNS records, we still have the Google verification code. Best option would be deleting this record after you check the ownership of your domain. This is because it's completely useless to leave orphan records in our DNS. So let's click on the X and let's confirm that we want to delete this record. After that, let's click on Apply and continue.